Greetings, friends. Oh, Erik, could you maybe just play a minute of beautiful piano to bring us in?
You got it.
Amazing. These are the sounds. Stargirl music says gorgeous. I totally agree. And I love your name, Stargirl Music, because that's kind of what we're here to talk about today, actually, is Song of the Soul. Um, to introduce y'all who don't know, this is my dear friend Erik Deutsch, master pianist. We kind of came up together, touring around in vans that would blow up when we were young. And Erik's got a bit of a different touring situation these days, which we'll probably discuss a little bit here. Erik and I, for some years now, have been in this soul song project where we take birth charts, or really any astrology chart, and through some simple astro musical harmony kung fu, I turn a chart into notes to send Erik's way, and then he creates a solo piano masterpiece. And we wanted to come on today to share with you that we're offering a bit of a solstice special. So just because I can't pronounce that doesn't mean it's not true. And I'll mention that more as we go along. But just to welcome you all here, thank you so much for joining live. The present of your presence is an amazing gift. Erik, I gotta say, I just noticed because I had set this machine up to share your website. It actually went right to mine, but which is GeminiBrett.com, and we'll play there today because there is a particular place that can bring you to an example of a soul song set list to hear. But Erik's site is hammerandstring.com. You push a piano key and it hammers a string, and that's what makes the beauty. And Erik, I just noticed when I pulled this up that you have a gig tonight in Mexico City, eh?
I do, yeah. I'm home for a week in between tour blocks with the Black Crows and got a gig tonight with my new project at a cool bar in town. So
The new project, it looks like it's called the Hate Love Trio.
Hate Love Trio.
Nice.
But
feeling Radio Raheem vibes there?
well, yeah, exactly. And there's 6 of us, so we say it's the biggest trio.
It's a double trio.
Double trio.
And why do you call it trio? So there's a trio for hate and a trio for love, and therefore 6 musicians.
I think that's where we're at now. It started as an actual 3-man band and just kept adding. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes. What's the instrumentation?
I'm playing synthesizers. It's kind of electronic, spacey kind of thing. So I got the Moog and the Juno and that kind of thing. There's a electric bass player, drums, a guitar, and other keyboard players. So the guitarist also plays synths.
Nice.
A saxophonist, Carolina, plays saxophone, and then a percussionist who's doing mostly electronic percussion, kind of like. It's kind of like a Talking Heads Cantina kind of psychedelic Khruangbin meets Air. We're working on the sound, but so far so good, and we're having a really fun time playing.
Instrumental
Mostly with occasional guests.
Nice, spacey, groovy, funky.
Yeah, with trying to really define a Latin kind of thing to it, percussion and everything.
Right on, which is wise because you've been living in Mexico City now for some years, right?
It's 6 years, and the musicians in this band are all Mexican and one Argentine friend. So, when you're playing music with these Latin American talented people, you might as well kind of soak up some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. So Erik and I played in a spacey, groovy, funky trance dance thing many, many years ago. And one common statement while on the road with 6 to 8 dudes stuffed into vans or buses that would regularly explode was space bus, man. And looking at this, the amazing tour buses that would speed by our slow trailer pulled situation. And it's like, one of these days, and my friend, you've reached it. So you're now touring and have been with the Black Crowes, which I think is amazing. It was one of my favorite bands back in the day. And yeah, a thing I find interesting about your recent experience that has had me consulting your astrological chart for my own personal learning is like how there were these huge opportunities that in a way got shut down. So with the Chicks, formerly the Dixie Chicks, and then all the lockdowns happened. So just as you were about to embark on a stadium tour, that was kind of quickly pulled out. And then one of the recent things that's intrigued me, because it carries a somewhat similar theme, is that the Black Crowes, who you've been playing with for some time now, was meant to do a double headlining tour with Aerosmith. And maybe tell me, you got a few gigs in and then that fell through too, yeah?
Yeah, it was supposed to be a year or more. We did 3 shows, and then Steven had an injury, a serious injury, but it was real, and he canceled the year, rescheduled that whole tour for this fall. And when we went to go do that, or getting ready to do that in late July, they canceled that. So 2 years in a row canceled on the Aerosmith tour. And actually, the Aerosmith retired. They just decided no more Aerosmith, which is a bummer. Yeah, and it was a shock last year when that happened. But life goes on, and I found some cool things to do with the free time that I didn't know I was going to have. And this year, we were kind of prepared as a business, as a band, to have a backup plan. And fortunately, they canceled before the tour, not once it started again. So that made it easier.
And it gave you time to get into the studio, right?
Yeah. Been in the studio this year, making a new record of my music, and with the Hate Love Trio doing things. I have a lot of records in the fire these days, a lot of irons in the fire. So that's been exciting. Black Crowes went in the studio, which was the result of the first Aerosmith cancellation, which is what you're referring to, I think. And so we made the record with the Black Crowes, and people liked the record, and it's nominated for a Grammy for Best Rock Album, which is kind
Congratulations.
of
Amazing.
Yeah, that's cool. So,
and your royalties going to come your way or no?
I don't know about that. We'll have to see. Yeah. But no, it's just a pleasure to be a part of it, and the recognition is always nice.
So Happiness Bastards is the name of the new Black Crowes record, and I believe they haven't recorded a record since like back in the day, right? Like,
I think they did one in 2009.
Okay.
2008. So they kind of recorded steadily from 1990 for 20 years, basically.
Yeah.
And then took a break, maybe 2012 even, but no, it's 2009. So it's there's a lot of Black Crowes recordings out there, so they have the ability to release music even when they weren't together. They're just about to re-release, for instance, the Jimmy Page Black Crowes Live at the Greek from 2000. Yeah. Amazing. Which is pretty cool, doing all this Led Zeppelin music. And Jimmy was, it's funny, like back then, I thought as a kid in the 90s, like, oh, Jimmy Page is an old guy, right? But when you do the math, in the year 2000, he wasn't much older than us, you know what I mean? And I don't feel like an old guy, and I don't think you do.
Oh, so you're going to take that back?
I'm going to take it back. And I remember seeing the Stones, for instance, in 2002 and thinking, oh, this is an old band. And I told my friend that, who loves them, and he said, no, Keith was 55 that year, And I was like, yeah, that's pretty viable, because I'm in a band with Chris Robinson and Rich Robinson, who are in their mid-50s, and these guys are great. They're great. I don't feel anything like they're, don't have the energy
Yeah, I mean, they're still running around. It's one of the most high energy shows I've seen. I mean, the Stones, obviously, and Jagger, it's hard to compete with,
Right.
regardless of his age, running around the scene, right? But yeah,
Right.
it was really cool to see you with the Crows. I mean, I was pretty soon after you started playing with them. I can't wait
Yep.
to see it again. But like, that was a high energy show, and like, it's at a place where I had to sit down, and I had to struggle with that because you want to move. Well, so maybe this is a TMI interrogation, but how much does it feel like you're playing with the Black Crows versus you are the Black Crows now? Do you feel that you're in the band?
Yeah. I mean, it's tricky because Chris and Rich are so defined as the leaders of that band, and there's been so many. I mean, and rightfully so. And there's been so many different great musicians that have been a part of it along the way. But I feel very much a part of the sound. I feel I have a great musical freedom within the constructs of the songs of the Black Crows, uh, and a great relationship with Chris and Rich and everybody else in the band. We have a very a unique situation. I think that as a band, we hang out all the time. Everybody gets along wonderfully, and that's not usually the case. So it's a really, really special opportunity. I'm just really glad to be on the ride, you know?
Yeah, I love it. And you're on the space bus and all the things and playing in Europe and all over the place, like just tracking what you're up to. I'm really proud of you, dude. I'm like, I think it's awesome. And listening to the new record, it's nice to hear how much Erik Deutsch I can hear in the music.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's true also to kind of how you came up because you lived in Nashville sometime. You had the band County Road X, right? Which was a jazz thing that was very kind of Southern rock influenced. You were a Deadhead when you were young. Like it all kind of really makes sense. I love
Totally.
that this band. Well, let's talk soul song a little bit. Um, and friends, we're going to do a live example or two. So I want to invite anyone here who would like to hear parts of their birth chart in musical form to put your birth data in the chat. Now, that being said, know that this means I'm not sure I'm going to put your chart on the screen. You know, I think for the sake of some um, confidentiality, I will not, but I will name things like this is your rising sign, this is your sun sign, this is your moon sign, because those are part of what I utilize to create a harmonic structure that Erik follows when he creates soul songs. When we don't know a birth time, which is necessary to get the rising sign, there's another thing that I do. So it's okay if you don't know what time you were born. But in this case, I actually want to encourage some emotional authenticity. I feel like what we can do here will be that much more powerful if you feel like sharing not only your birth data and know that this is being recorded and will be on my YouTube page and Instagram and stuff, you know, until they kick me off. So don't go there if you don't want this to be out and about. By the way, so let me suggest this. You could also write like a moniker, a nickname that I'll call you by if you'd prefer. Put in your birth data and then just write something that you're dealing with at this time in your life. And then my goal will be to seek something in your birth chart that resonates with this challenge that you're experiencing now. Maybe it's a challenge that's come up again and again and again, as we do as human beings. And what I'll do is look to that in your astrology and maybe speak to it a little bit, but more importantly than hearing all the words, I will invite Erik to musically express some of what I hear in the chart. And then we'll look into the tension of that together, and then we'll find places where it releases. So again, the invitation here is if you want to play, and I'll just kind of randomly choose, put your birth data in, maybe a nickname, that's up to you. I will only use first names otherwise. And without writing the words you would need to fully detail an issue that might be alive for you at this time. Even like I'm afraid to go sit with my family for Thanksgiving tomorrow because they exist on the other side of the political spectrum or something like that, which will be a pretty common thing for many people here, I'm sure. that will help me, instead of going into a full song of your chart, which we would love to do for you, it will help me kind of tune into a specific thing that I think will offer an opportunity to see the power of making music of your birth chart and how it can be a great source for healing. While I wait for some news to come in from y'all, I'm going to first hopefully see if this works. But bring you to an example of a soul song that we can listen to in full. Now, when we do this for birth charts, we shoot for a 12-minute version. And sometimes they go 13. Ideally, it's 12 minutes and 12 seconds because we astrologers love those things. And so does the piano, where there are 12 notes available between one note and the next. But I think what I'm going to do is, hopefully this works, play a song that Erik and I created in 2022. When that year there were 13 new moons. And so we created a record of soul songs called The 13 Moons of 2022. And that year there was a solar eclipse on October 25th, which felt like maybe it's like why we did it, because I was born on October 24th and Erik on the 26th. And so we had on the calendar date between our two birthdays, this solar eclipse. So hopefully this works. We're about to find out that you can hear this thing or not. And Erik, I think maybe let's both mute ourselves. But if you don't hear anything, Erik, please let me know. Oh, wait, I see what I have to do. One of these. Okay, let's see if this works. So yeah, Erik, let's mute ourselves and then unmute yourself and let me know you can't hear it if that's the case, please. And so this is like a 7-minute song, so everyone just kind of can hear the magic. And I'll speak a little bit of how I got from the chart of the new moon to do what I do to give Erik what he needs to do what he does for this project. And then we'll do a couple live examples and wrap so Erik can get to sound check for his gig tonight. All right, buttons, one of these. I love how that song ends. It's like, and especially because that was the first time where Erik and I created this album. It was particularly tricky for, well, I can't say how it was for Erik, but on my side, because these 13 new moons of 2022, and usually we have 12, or every third year we have like 13. At the beginning of the year, the charts were very similar, at least in the way that I am able to translate into harmony for Erik to play. So I had to kind of come up with new games from one to the next. I actually almost changed like the approach, like the paradigm, the system of how we do this, because I was really frustrated just trying to like offer Erik enough to make one different than the next besides the key that it was in. But I mean, we found our way, and I ended up sending Erik things like, hey, like put some paper in the piano for this one and give me some weird prepared piano sounds. And we had a cool discussion on the phone. And like the hope was that we could make this thing a complete sounding record, if you will. I want to show you before we move on a couple things. One is where you can find that music online in case you would like to listen. So if you go to GeminiBrett.com, which is my website, and by the way, there you'll find a place to sign up for my newsletter. And if you scroll down, you'll find a donate button where you could buy us a cup of tea. You can learn more about the Constellations community by clicking that tab there. Okay. But if you click on this moon songs tab, it's going to bring you to this page on my site, which you can get to directly from GeminiBrett.com/2022 moon songs. I'm putting that in the chat for you right now. It's a weird thing happening in the Instagram space, so I can't quite do that there in this moment, but I'll see what I can do. Anyway, you'll hear a little bit of the project here. And if you click on this image or click on the links below, you'll be redirected to Erik's Bandcamp page, where, by the way, you could link to all sorts of Erik's solo projects and maybe otherwise. And you can just go through and stream each of these songs, the 13 new moons of 2022, individually. You can play the whole album. If you choose to send in a donation of, I think we said $7 or more, you'll also receive the production notes. And I'm going to show you some of those now so you can hear how we got from a chart to the music. Hey, Erik, do you see my like bouncing ball cruising around the screen?
Yep.
At least the mouse. Okay, cool. So let me show you another thing, which is if you type in GeminiBrett.com/song24, it'll go to a place where you can book a soul song for $287. That's the special we're running right now. The list price for them is $404. So it's really quite a discount. We like to do this every solstice time to offer an opportunity not only for people to hear their soul song through this method, through this magic, but also like it's a pretty amazing, unique gift to give. And many of us are experiencing, I love astrology and my people don't, and they're really sick of me talking about it all the time. And I would love to gift them a reading so they can know more about it. And you just can't push that thing. But if you give them a song and say like, hey, here's a song that's based upon the unique alignment of the solar system at the time of your birth, one that will never ever repeat, like this is the code of your unique geometry. Maybe that's something that they can hear. Maybe it's something that will open their heart a bit, or who knows, right? And maybe you'll have them start asking questions where you can share some of this cosmic wonder with them. I will say I typically encourage, if you're giving a song as a gift, to not send along my production notes, because I tend to write some pretty weird shit. For people who are into astrology, or if you get one for yourself, definitely the notes. We do encourage people who receive the song to listen to the song at least a few times before you read the notes that I created to help Erik get from one place to the next. Because we really want you to just experience your astrology wordlessly. and to just hear the music, you know. But I tell you, I had a session with somebody recently. It's happened many times where they say, "Oh my God, that thing you wrote about my soul song, like that was like the story of my life. That came true when I was young." Like one of the symbols, and I'll show you what I mean by that I sent Erik for a chart for a song some time ago was like the death of a loved one opens your ability to see into the spiritual realms, something like that. And years later, I had a reading with a woman that hired us to do a soul song. And she was like, dude, my husband died, my first husband, when I was 19 after like a year of marriage. I saw his ghost a few times, completely changed everything, of course. And it was like, oh my gosh. And then I always send people 3 of these symbols. And she told me how the other one was exactly like so on point. It was crazy. It was like really literal. And then the third one hadn't manifested yet. And it was just like really positive and beautiful thing. So we kind of built our session around moving towards realizing that type of energetic image in her life to come. It was a really powerful and beautiful session. It's something I've been hoping would happen. And there's been a few times where people followed up after having received a soul song, and we, did an astrology reading like I do. That's my job. But we were able to use these symbols that came through when I was just channeling into their chart the way that I do with soul songs, which has me experiencing astrology in a very different way. It's hard to describe. I just want to share a bit about the origin of this. I had first been told about kind of an astro-harmonic music map by a friend called Ezra Sanzerbell, who wrote this pretty cool book called Astro Music some years ago. And then I was using this in sessions. Like if I look at a chart and I couldn't get there with somebody, and I was just looking at this thing, and it's like, well, maybe this showed up in your life like this, and ask them about it. I don't want to tell, I want to ask in sessions to the best of my ability, So I'm just like missing the mark, or like it's not coming out. I grab a keyboard, sit at the piano if they're in my house, and I just like play the harmony. And then sometimes that would just shock the story out. It was nuts. It happened again and again and again. But the big piece where I really wanted to do this with Erik, and we did something actually in Mexico City at our friend Ursula's place, where we had some friends there, and we actually started with Ursula's song. And like, because I've been dreaming into a way that we could make music of birth charts in this regard for some time. That was really powerful. But when we started doing this, I don't know if it was before or after that for individuals. It was before this. I had done a reading for twins at one point, newborns. And I used to back then just record astrology readings, and I sent it. And so the mothers of these kids were having another child was coming in, and they asked me to do another reading. And at that time I was in an existential crisis around doing astrology for kids. Because I'm always on the fence about it. I'm like, why don't we wait until they're 21 or at least 18 or maybe 30 before we start getting all psychobabble about their planetary alignments? And how do you do this in a good way for kids? That's not, they called me because they said, like, especially for the twin who was a little bit more challenging, it was really helpful to know some of these things about the astrology. Anyway, the girl who was coming in, her name would be Melody. Maybe it was Harmony. It was one of those two. And I was like, all right, this is it. Because I don't want to send them a recording of their chart. And so I just sent them a song without telling them I was going to. It's like, here's your reading. And they loved it so much, of course. And weren't angry about that's not what we ordered or anything like that. And then Erik and I, like, we've done, I think 400 of these now, Erik.
Yeah, I thought maybe it was getting close to 500. I wasn't sure, but it's been around there.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's right. And this woman I was talking about before, she was actually in our kind of original Christmas batch where we did 1 million. And I was like writing poems for people. It was a lot. And that one was thanks to Astrology Hub, who basically, by the way, also helped us financially create that 13 Moons of 2022. So thanks to Amanda Pua Walsh and Astrology Hub for that. All right. Anyway, so GeminiBrett.com/song24. And I put it in the chat in one of these places. Instagram just like won't let me play. that will get you to this discounted soul song. We're going to be able to do, I think, 33 to deliver by December 25th. So if this wants to be a present for Christmas or for Hanukkah, like, book it now. As soon as we run out, and by the way, if you do this for yourself, please use GeminiBrett.com/song25 instead, and we'll deliver it to you in January, if that's okay. But if it's a gift and you need it to get there by December 25th, we'll send you an email with the song and my production notes. Yeah, like, book it now. We're just now announcing our solstice sale. So again, GeminiBrett.com/song24 will get you there. If that link doesn't work anymore, it means that we've reached our limit of songs that we'll be able to deliver by December 25th, which is amazingly also this year the start date for Hanukkah. Then use GeminiBrett.com/song25. Same discount, $287 for a song, but we'll deliver that one in January at some point. Well, actually, Erik, I should ask you because I haven't checked in. So you're going to be able to do this little marathon of songs right before Christmas time, and then you're going on the road, or what's happening with you?
No, I'm coming home from the Black Crowes tour on the 23rd, and have time to get to work then to do a little marathon right before Christmas, and then I'm around mostly in Mexico for the next couple months. So,
oh, awesome! So you'll be able to record in January.
Great, happy to. Yeah, excited to.
Yeah, and by the way, friends, we can do relationship charts. I usually use Davison relationship charts, if you know what that is. We can do a song for your wedding moment. We can do a song for your solar return every year. I have a client that comes back every year, which is awesome. And it's really cool to hear the kind of evolution of songs that are happening from one year to the next. We could do your birth chart again, because, I mean, this is a super unique thing that I'm going to tune into it in a special way every time I connect with your chart. I hope that's true when I do readings too. And then Erik's going to, he's in the moment. So as an astrologer, I would believe the way that the planets are currently aligned are going to influence that. I don't know that Erik would use this word, but I try to keep what I send him very simple so he's not too constricted and can be in the channel, right? But let me show you what I send him, and then we'll play with some of these live examples. And I really appreciate a few of you sharing your birth information here and having the courage to share the challenge you're currently experiencing as well. I think it's going to be helpful for what we want to share. So these are the notes for the song that you just heard. And you can see the chart down here. Actually, let me scroll down a little bit, and you'll see a larger print of that chart. Here, I like to just show it with 0 Aries rising, because I want the client to be able to see how I get from here to there. And it's a very simple system. If you speak music, we're using a chromatic system. The idea is there's 12 notes in an octave, at least according to the Western harmonic approach. And there's, of course, 12 signs of the zodiac. Ezra Sanzerbell, who I mentioned before, he's working with a system that's pretty old, like back to the Golden Dawn, where they align the sign of Cancer with the note A, or the key of A, and then go from there. Just feel like Cancer is C, and that lets Aries, which is Martian, have some sharps, which for me makes more sense with Mars. In a sense, harmony is relative. In a sense, it's not, because A is like, as much as Aries is a being, it's an archetype, it has character, So this is the way that I go with it. There's many, many ways you could do this. But basically, the first thing that Erik has is actually restriction. Which, and like, I just can't even imagine doing this, but like in this chart, because there's no planets in Leo, or in Virgo, or in Sagittarius, he's literally not allowed to, or encouraged not to, play the notes C sharp or D flat, D, and F, right? So he first gets what I'll call like a Saturn thing where he's limited, right? And so he gets this harmonic palette of planets and points. And basically, this is me tuning into where planets are in the chart and showing Erik those notes. And you can see some of the notes are in bold. I'm emphasizing the visible planets and then using kind of lowercase and not bold for some of the other notes or signs that are in the chart, but are of invisible planets, or in this case, we were working with Lilith or whatever it may be. In the case of the moon charts, I was writing this weird starry story. You can hear eclipse in this, right? A dragon eats the sun and the world goes dark for a minute before the dragon disappears to reveal the light reborn. Like pretty clear eclipse myth, right? But then I'm doing things like this. The solar eclipse in this case in Scorpio was conjunct Venus and trine Lilith. And so then I just offer Erik some musical harmony, kind of places to be. And, this one, what came through was a woman drops acid at a Grateful Dead show. This is officially the end of the life in which she has referred to herself as housewife. And the hope is Erik maybe will get a laugh out of that while he's playing, and just something's going to come through that lets him play C major 7 over E in a different way than if he read a different note. Yeah, I mean, Erik, let me put this away and just ask you, how much are you spending time with these production notes before you record, or how much are you just kind of reading along as you record and experience it in the moment?
I study the palette, and the palette of notes that I'm allowed to use, before I record, and I make notes on those, and I make sure, and I actually write down the notes that aren't in the palette so that I can be sure to avoid them best to my ability, which I usually can do, pretty consistently.
Amazing.
The rest of the chart, I vary. Like I'll read through it more thoroughly than other times, but I find that in the moment it actually really is great. It's great to come to the middle section, the second section of our piece, and read as I'm improvising, as I'm kind of deciding where the piece is going to go, where the song is going to move. I love to read these ultra creative snippets that you come up with. I mean, they're amazing. And the fact that we've done hundreds and there's 3 per chart and they're completely unique every time is an attribute to your creative bandwidth, man. It's fun. So I get there and I soak it in, and I really enjoy those in the moment. I do tend to look at the key centers for each of the 3 sections ahead of time, just so I kind of have an idea where I'm going.
Yeah.
Occasionally we'll have, let's say, a first section that's centered around the note C, a second section, something different, but maybe back to C for the third section when certain planets are reappearing, of course. And that's something I like to kind of notice, that I'm not going to be moving to somewhere totally different, that I'm actually going to be in a song that is in a more consistent harmonic sound. And then just to be aware of that can help me kind of build sometimes and think about the variety of different paths to take.
Yeah, and so what I do, and this was a little bit different for the new moon charts, because I didn't want to place that particular new moon in California where I reside, or Mexico City where Erik was recording, or anywhere else in the world, right? I wanted to make it more of a global thing. So I just keyed kind of the rising sign to the sign of the new moon, and had to kind of take a different approach. But what I typically do, if we know the birth time for the chart that we're working with, is we'll start in the key of the moon, and then we'll move to the key of the sun, and then we'll end up at the key of the rising sign. And there's a bit too of like a transition from the moon to the sun once we get to the rising sign, like that rising sign considering the sun. So that would place the sun in the house astrologically. And then I'll move to the steersman of the chart, which is one of the ancient words for the planet that guides and governs the rising sign. So I'm looking at a chart. TL, I'm just going to, Turanian, one of my favorite YouTube names here. Thank you so much for sharing not only your chart data, but also an experience that you have. She writes, experiencing tension with wanting to belong to my tribe, but having to stick to my values and integrity, and feeling over the outcast, wanting to express and be peace, but not receiving it. It's very beautifully said. I think it's a pretty common experience. Maybe, I mean, for mystics like us, I mean, maybe more now given the whole crazy divide and conquer culture that seems to be so evident, like worldwide. I will say that what I see in your chart is a clear importance around community. I believe that you are going to very much realize your tribe. The human in me is sad that that's not an experience that you're having right now. The astrologer in me is kind of enthusiastic about it because the way that I hear your chart, that's how I experience charts now more and more since we've been doing this. For like really hear a chart, like I feel like that is the main venue for soul growth that you as a being are here incarnated to do. And so, of course, when there's tension here, it's leading us to not settling for something that's not enough. Yeah. So, and by the way, TL, given the Uranus transits recently to your Taurus everything, I think this is meant to be a time in your life when it's kind of most alive and somewhat tricky, and that you will have this amazing revelation and revolution that breaks you to another side where you feel very connected with your tribe. So TL's chart, which I'm not going to put on the screen again, because I want to offer some confidentiality here. But I'll name names too. Like she was born with Cancer rising, Taurus sun, and Taurus moon. Now in the Cancer design, Taurus is the 11th whole sign. And that's one of the reasons why I greatly feel that this idea of community, which in astrology is an 11th house theme mostly, is very significant to her course on Earth. And I think this is the right experience to be happening at this time. She also, Cancer rising means that the moon is the steerswoman of her chart. And the moon is in the 10th house in most house systems, but in the 11th whole sign. And I personally work with many house systems, and I see that as both. One other thing I'll mention here is that TL was born with Venus in the sign of Cancer. In early degrees, and the moon is in early degrees of Taurus. In astrology, we call this a mutual reception between these two goddesses, Venus and moon. And in one regards, from a whole sign point of view, I would see this as like very personal because Venus is in the first sign and the moon is in the 11th. In another regard, I would say it's like part of your design of how you're here to care and share. Aries midheaven, Mars in the 11th. But this is going to be, because of Mars in the sign of Taurus, like outsider, different, even counterculture. And so when you find your tribe, I mean, I think as you're sharing, like you want to be the peace, you're not receiving it right now. You're wanting to belong to your tribe, but having to stick to your values and integrity, which of course I celebrate. We want a tribe that honors you for exactly who you are, that aligns with your integrity, right? Like that's a more beautiful image of the 11th house. And by the way, the second too, your values. So having Sun, who represents your second, in the 11th, like all of this totally resonates. And by the way, I would be going here whether you wrote that or not, especially given the signs of the times and some of the transits that have been happening for you, like Pluto across the descendant. Okay, so Erik, I don't know if you want to write down a palette. Sorry, I didn't warn you that probably would be something we'd have to do for this to work in the way that we play these astro harmony games. So what I'm going to give Erik now is the notes that are described by the signs that are populated at the time of TL's birth. And look, this is a very, very simple system. There have been so many systems throughout time. I really recommend this awesome book by Jocelyn Godwin called Harmonies of Heaven and Earth. Mysticism and Music from Antiquity to the Avant-Garde. She shows all of these different systems from Pythagoras to Kepler and beyond that astrologers have used over time to try to make music out of the harmony of the heavenly spheres. Our system is ridiculously simple because I really want to leave it open for Erik to do his thing. Erik's a genius music in all regards, but I would say especially in the improvisational field. Sagittarius rising, Jupiter and Taurus is part of the way that I see that coming through in Erik's nativity and strength in the 12th house. Okay, so Erik, here's the palette. The general harmonic shape, which I don't think we'll do here, like I'm just going to give you some aspect groups to play with.
Okay.
But just in case it informs you as well, if you were playing or recording a whole song, we would go from B flat, Moon, and Taurus. We'd actually stay in B flat because the sun is in Taurus as well.
Okay.
And then we'd be heading to C because the rising sign is Cancer.
Okay.
And from Cancer, I'd reference the sun, which is B flat. And then I'd represent what we call the steersman of the chart. In this case, the moon in B flat. So it's just like a lot of B flat and C. And maybe that wants to show itself through these aspect groups anyway. And a little bit of Isabel, or maybe too much. Shocking. All right. Here's the palette.
Okay.
I guess I'll start with C because it's in the key of Cancer.
Okay.
So C, E flat, F, B flat, and that's it. Yeah, that's right. Actually, let me give you one other note, which is A. We'll bring in the midheaven, the Aries midheaven here.
Okay.
So TL has a very strong stellium, which is an astro word for planet party, like a lot of planets in the same sign. So in this simple approach where we're not actually giving different keys or notes for different planets, all of your B flat planets, TL, it's just B flat. Or sorry, all of your Taurus planets, B flat. You see, once I start speaking here, it's just like that's the sign called B flat. And so maybe, Erik, you could just give us a little bit on that palette and just express how these signs that were occupied by planets and points at the time of TL's birth play with one another.
Okay. I'll do short improvisation with 2 sections.
Beautiful.
Okay.
A little B flat to C section, you mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. There we go.
TL, I would love if you're willing to hear in the comments of, does that sound like you? What's in your heart when you hear your chart played in that way? Or at least I should say notes of your chart. Now, a note here, when you order a song with us, the sound quality is going to be top notch. Like Erik has all the recording gear and the mics are in the piano as you do. Right now you're getting a live mic. And I thought it sounded pretty good, but it's like not even anywhere near the quality. Now Erik is playing on his Steinway, which is an amazing thing.
Yeah, this is the 1981 Steinway M grand piano. I love this piano and it sounds great recorded. It really does.
And you chose 81 because, of course, that was the year of those 2 Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions in Libra, I'm sure, right? Yeah.
Of course.
Obviously. Well, speaking of Saturn conjunctions in Libra, TL, I feel that maybe part of the image of some of the challenges that you expressed look like Mars and Chiron together in the 11th, and specifically a Taurus Mars. By the way, astrologers will use this term detriment for Mars and Taurus. I think it's the most detrimental term possible, and I think it's kind of stupid. You'll hear astrologers say Mars and Taurus is weak. I present Exhibit A, which is Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali has Mars and Taurus, and I think his Mars worked quite well. That's the greatest of all time, the GOAT. By the way, Capricorn Sun, the GOAT, right? But, I would suggest this, that Muhammad Ali's greatest fights were counterculture. I mean, first of all, he was born Cassius Clay, took Islam, changed his name, but maybe most importantly, he chose not to go to Vietnam, right? So he was drafted. It was his turn to go fight the big fight. And he's like, those guys aren't my enemy. Like, there's no reason for me to go over there. And he was jailed. He was fined. He wasn't allowed to fight in 3 years of his prime, right? Literally the greatest of all time. And for me, that's a very beautiful expression of Mars in the sign of Taurus. You got to fight the good fight. And it's typically going to be something that's not typecast. It's pretty much opposite of that. So it's something in your chart, TL, and especially with Mars conjunct Chiron, where I can feel that kind of I'm different, outsider, right? That's challenging to Cancer, that's challenging to Libra, maybe more than any of the other signs. I think Capricorn can fit that as well. I see your Libra, Saturn, Pluto involved in this, especially given the quincunx with Mars and Chiron. But the place I actually want to bring Erik to help us hear this a bit is in this yod in your chart of the Taurus moon, Venus in Cancer, with Sagittarius, Jupiter, and Uranus somewhere near, not right at, but somewhere near their midpoint. Because I think it's this Sagittarius, Jupiter conjunct Uranus that helps you be weird and not feel like you belong. And of course, I'm rooting for that. Everybody's here is rooting for that. And we all understand, right, that you want to go your own way. You're searching for spiritual truth. This is part of your great design of how you're going to give your own gifts. And searching for truth is not what, family, culture, whatever really wants, right? They want us to belong, fit in, and all of those things. So in a way, it's going to be hard just in the design here for us to... Oh, Erik, you know what? There's another note I need to give you, which is B, and that's going to help. So this is the Gemini note for your North Node, TL. So I guess, Erik, what I would ask you to do is play some tension for us between these neighboring signs or neighboring notes, B flat and B, maybe also B and C, and really get into the tension with this theme in mind. I just want to read this out loud again. Well, I'll read some of this really sounds like me and wonderful things that she wrote in response to what you played. But I just want to read this. So, experiencing tension with wanting to belong to my tribe, but having to stick to my values and integrity, and feeling ever the outcast, wanting to express and be peace, but not receiving it. Yeah, so maybe we can just use that as the symbolic scene. I was just reaching for maybe there's another way that I would express that, but let's use that. And if you can just give us some of the tension between B flat, B, and C, and then let it resolve to changes of F, B flat, C, like a
F,
1
B,
4,
F.
yeah, like a 1 4 5
Yep.
bass thing. Maybe a little bit of that gospel soul, bring us up to heaven afterwards. And you know what? I actually want to read this thing that TL wrote. She wrote, I feel all of this, yes, to your recording before, your music before. But she also wrote, I have to add that I am so genuinely thankful for the community I do have. Just long for full integration and acceptance. You feel it is hard to stand in opposition with those I love and embrace, right? And so that can also be like part of the tension, but part of like this great release that you're going to bring us to. All right, and TL, maybe everyone, because I think a lot of us share this. But you can just close your eyes and really open your heart and let this music speak directly to that place that matters most.
Is this these tension points? Are they over the drone of C? Is that correct?
Maybe we could hear them over B flat.
Okay.
And also over C.
Okay.
And yeah, let's do this too, Eric, because you can. Once you get to this like 1 4 5 in F, it's actually like let's hear that, but then it wants to be a what like a C F B flat thing.
What's to move around? Okay, cool.
Right. Yeah. Like if we could hear like that 1 4 5 from the F point of view, but whatever it is from the B flat point of view, and end with it being from the C point of view. Does that make sense?
Okay, you got it.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. I want to say this is definitely one of the places where I would have gotten to had I not been prompted by what you wrote. Just based upon your chart, it's some of my favorite aspect groups or connection between planets and points in your chart. These Taurus, Cancer, Sagittarius yods. Geometrically, TL, the stronger one for you is that Taurus Mars and your Cancer ascendant with the Sagittarius South Node and Neptune. And it really goes there, like to that kind of beautiful heavenly music that Erik played at the end. Like that's just, I feel like it's the design of your nativity, and it has a very deep kind of communal and creative and artistic focus that's built on like the weird quest for big truth, which is a way that I'll describe your retrograde Sagittarius, Jupiter at Uranus, and the great royal star Antares, the Scorpion's heart. Erik, would you do me a favor, please, and just play like B and C at the same time next to each other? You can really hear the tension in that, right? And so this is one of the inconjuncts in traditional aspect theory or astrological theory of neighboring signs are said to be blind to one another. But Erik, maybe now play C and F just sustained. This might be one of the issues with the systems that we use because that's a quincunx. And it's supposed to be another one of the blind spots. Now, where I've kind of found some resolve and the challenge that does not sound challenging is that because these notes that are separated by that interval will always belong to keys that are most related. So for folks who don't have great ears, musicians like myself, I can get confused as to whether somebody's playing in C or F or G because the chords are so closely related. And the quincunxes from C are F and G, or the quincunxes from Cancer are Sagittarius and Aquarius, to speak that in astrology. So it's kind of one of the places where I've come to terms with this. But I also believe that it's the intent of the quincunx, and especially the yod, to bring us into something more heavenly by opening our eyes, our spiritual eyes, to something that cannot be seen with our terrestrial eyes, if you will. And I think that's a huge magical code that's built into your nativity, TL. Erik, we're pretty deep in time and you have a sound check to get to. Do you have time for one more example? We'll do a shorter one, or do you need to?
Let's do one.
Beautiful. All right. TL, thank you so much for letting us tune into your song a little bit more. I should say one more time, friends, we're on here to describe what Song of the Soul can do for you, and also to let you know that we have a discount happening right now. We do this every solstice, every winter solstice. Sorry, December solstice. Let's speak globally. So if you want to do this and give it to a gift for somebody, it's like the time. So we typically charge $404 for these 12-minute beautiful Erik Deutsch grand piano masterpieces based upon the astral harmony notes that I create from your birth chart, or the chart of a loved one, or the chart of a marriage, or the relationship chart. We can do so much with this. So if you're interested in picking up a soul song for you or for a loved one, we can deliver 33 of these before December 25th. And then we can look on into January as well. So GeminiBrett.com/song24 will bring you to a hidden page so you can take advantage of a $287 soul song discounted from $404. We'll hope you will take us up on this offer. All right, so I grabbed a bunch because a lot of you wrote notes in here. Oh, I did want to share that Winner wrote this, which is that her husband knew a childhood friend of Muhammad Ali who, when asked for a little known quality of his, said he defended bullied kids all through his school years, and that she loves that as an image of Mars and Taurus. And TL, you wrote Winter, yes. TL, check out your synastry with Muhammad Ali. His sun is at your descendant. His Saturn is exact your Mercury. I think maybe most interesting for the experiment we've been playing with here today, his Uranus is right on your Mars. And you might find some inspiration from Muhammad Ali. All right, well, now we get to talk to a place far away in Europe. So this is for V. I need to find what she wrote here. And thank you so much, everyone, for the present of your presence and for being so active in the chat. It really is such a treat for StarryTelling Hour, which happens every week on Wednesday, Mercury's Day at 11:11 a.m. Pacific time. I'm very grateful that Erik could join me here to play today, quite literally. Music so beautifully. This craft that we actually use the word play to describe its work. What if everything was described in this way? Life would be a better trip. All right, so V, you wrote that you struggle to hold the upheavals in your life with patience and to trust in the future. I believe we call that being an awakened human being. So welcome. Tell me how to get there. But also let's source this in your chart. So Erik, let me give you a new palette to play with. Key center is, you prefer flats to sharps, right?
Usually.
Okay. D flat. The three centers for changes will be D flat to G and back to D flat. So tritoning. But from D flat, the palette D flat, D, E flat, E, F, G, A flat, B flat.
Okay.
Could you maybe just walk those from bottom to the top and
Sure.
get to the octave at the top? There's those amazing leaps at the end there. And then maybe could you improvise a bit on that? And if you'd like, you can get from a kind of base zone of the moon in Leo, D flat, to the sun in Aquarius, G, and then back to the rising sign,
Okay.
D flat.
A short three section improvisation. How about that?
2 minutes, yeah.
Great. Okay.
This person was born in Bulgaria, Sofia, and I loved it. So like in the middle there was kind of like gypsy music, which you can't really play on piano, right? But like as it was in a sense like in the classical period, how some of that kind of Eastern European influence of the classical world, I really got to hear. It was amazing.
Well, one thing I'll say harmonically, we always try. I always try, and with your guidance as well. We don't want to make soul songs that are incredibly intense and dissonant. You know, like we're not afraid to go there when in the right moment, but that's not the point of the song. A song of intense dissonance. So I'm always looking for the consonant paths. Interesting, not basic, but looking for melodious consonant pathways. But sometimes there are other things just staring you in the face. So when I was on the first section, I found this nice stream of notes that you could do something very pretty and very beautiful with. But then here was this, and I had. And of course, it's still consonant, just with a darker twist to it. We're not doing things like, not painful dissonance, but a different style of melody that can evoke something different. So that's where I found that.
Would you, so V, first of all, I'd love to hear if this sounds like you, if this feels like you. And I want to read this comment that came in Instagram. Unfortunately, I'm not able to provide these links in the Instagram. Like it froze up and got weird on me, but Don't Go Back to Sleep wrote, I purchased my soul song a couple of years ago. What a gift. I'm so grateful. Thank you. I listen to it annually. Awesome. We have one client who dances to her soul song every morning. And she sent me a few of the dance. She's an amazing dancer. It's like so cool to see. But others who, like you, like listen to it on their birthday, on their solar return day, and just kind of tune into the song and go on a mission somewhere, But I wanted to read that also because of this wonderful name that you have for your Instagram handle, which is Don't Go Back to Sleep. Because Erik, like what you just described about, hey, we're like trying to keep it consonant. Like there's things that you can't avoid. They're here. But for me, this seems like the way to respond to the significant challenges that we will all experience on Earth, especially if you are on a awakening, or I prefer to say a weirding path. We don't wake up from dreams. We wake up from nightmares, But yeah, generally, when I send this to Erik, I encourage him actually, we start in the key of the moon, and it's written on everyone like a lullaby in the key of. And then typically when we get to these aspect groups, I'm intentionally looking for some of the tense parts of the chart. And then everybody tells me like, it's like, yeah, everything was going smoothly. And then I heard this part and then I started crying. And then it like went to this place and I started really like healing and laughing and giggling. And some charts and some songs will have like more of that tension than others. But I'll just say, like, show me a beautiful piece of music that doesn't have tension. And a great composer or improviser will intentionally create tension so that the release matters, so that we come back to beauty and harmony.
Of course, a beautiful film, a beautiful book, or any life is the same, right?
Absolutely, right? And so we want to see that in charts. We want to hear that in soul songs. It's real, right? Okay, so let's get into some of the tension here. I mean, really those two key centers of D flat and G, which, could you just sustain a D flat and G, please? And then will you add, while you hold those two down, will you add the E in between? And maybe just hammer on those things a little bit. While you're at it, maybe just go fully diminished. Right. And so when you kind of get that, like, I just walked into the wrong saloon vibe. Right? And then the other is straight up tied to the train tracks with the train coming. And this in our music, and we're not the first to do it, this would be the way that, astrologically speaking, a grand cross plays out, or even a T square. So could you just play again, Erik, the diminished triad, the 1 flat 3 flat 5? That's the sound of a T square, and then add the double flat seventh. That's the grand cross. Okay. And as it is in astrology, there's 3 grand crosses: the cardinal, the fixed, and the mutable. On the piano, there's 3 fully diminished. I don't know, what do you call them? Force or fully diminished chords, like potential? Whatever. Yeah. Either way, you have your Leo in the bottom or your Scorpio in the bottom, etc. Right? The grand trine, by the way, is the 3 augmented triads that are available to you, at least note by note speaking. And so, V, this is like a significant signature in your chart. This is an interesting time in your life, where, again, Uranus, now in Uranus opposition, right, has been stimulating your Leo moon, first your Aquarius sun, your Aquarius Mercury, spoke to Chiron and Taurus before all of this, and now is opposite your Uranus. Like it's a time where I would imagine some of the disruption and some of the discord is really going to challenge you to, let me write back to what you had to say when you wrote your birth info in here. There's so many comments, everyone. Thank you so much. It is amazing. And I'm wishing I had put some of these ones that I wanted to get back to aside. Okay, and if I can't find it, I will just, oh, here we go. So I struggle to hold the upheavals of my life with patience and trust in the future, right? And like now's the time, more now, I would say, than any other time. And some of that, hold with patience. I just want to offer that the strong Saturn transits that have been happening for you, Saturn opposite your Jupiter, and then your Mars, and this and conjunct your Venus coming this year, and squaring your Saturn, like it's another place to be. It references, of course, as you know, another T square in your chart. So Erik, here's the game. Let me see where I want to bring resolution here. Okay, so the game will be actually going back and forth between two diminished triads. One of them D flat E G, and the other a half step up from those three. So the D F A flat diminished triad. Okay. And this will be going back and forth between the Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius T square of your chart and the Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces T square of your chart, okay? And then where I wanted to resolve, because I just want to like, I love how you already know the solution that you're moving towards, and it just hasn't been realized yet, which is holding the upheavals of your life with patience, right? And trust in the future, which I'll describe as one word, which is faith. So actually, in this case, Erik, I'm going to give you a symbol. Let me find out where this wants to resolve to. I think, one more moment, please. Oh yeah, let's do like D flat major. So it's kind of playing this like D flat diminished triad to the D diminished triad, kind of going back and forth and really building like castles of tension, challenges, and then resolving to D flat major, and somehow in there emphasizing, oh, let me just leave it at that. Okay, and then an image would be this. A beautiful day on the beach turns cloudy. People scream and start running away from the ocean. You look to see a tidal wave coming, but knowing there's no point to run, you sit, pray, and the wave passes over you. You find yourself on the other side, floating in sunny, tranquil waters. Beautiful. Thank you, bro.
You're welcome. Amazing image. That was amazing.
Yeah, well, that's one we want, right? Can't run away, just dive through and see what happens. And you might find your way in some tropical island, some beautiful city in a land down south, or whatever it is. Yeah, Erik, it's so fun to spend some time together, even online like this, and to connect these crafts. I'm so appreciative of you giving me that other half that's necessary for these soul songs to come through, and for your willingness to play. And it's so cool to see how we've kind of grown together. Or like, I don't know, it happened magically instantaneously, but it's also moved through these different places. And I'm so excited to see the Christmas batch of 2024 and see how it goes. So friends who are watching on YouTube, I will pin a comment. I actually have to learn how to do that. But also in the description of this video, you will find these two links. One of them, just to speak it out, is geminibrett.com/song24. You can do a soul song for yourself or for a loved one that way. If it's a gift, please note that so we make sure we send it to your email and not to theirs. Maybe I can ask Anna to help me create kind of a beautiful image that you could print and give to them as a card, so that there's something that you can put under the tree or menorah or whatever it is for you. So yeah, geminibrett.com/song24. I think we can do 33 of these and then we'll cut it off. But song 25, geminibrett.com/song25. Both of those links will be in the description below in the YouTube video. That will also get you this discount, which this year we are offering at $287, down from $404. Take advantage. And yeah, we'll let that run through. If you buy a song by solstice time, or let me even say January 1st, we'll do the Gregorian thing. So until the calendar flips, you have access using those links. If you're on my mailing list, and please do be on my mailing list, I'll be sending an email about this along with the video that we've just recorded that you witnessed live. Thanks for being here. So you can join my mailing list at geminibrett.com, and you can join Erik's by heading to his amazing website that will link you to much of his amazing music, hammerandstring.com. If you're in Mexico City tonight, the love hate, or is it hate love trio?
Hate love trio.
Right. So you start with the tension and then you get to the release. Where are you playing?
A wonderful bar called Cananea.
Beautiful. And Erik, as we were mentioning at the beginning of this thing, maybe you weren't here, has been playing with the Black Crows for some years now.
3 years.
And y'all are playing everywhere. Where's the next tour?
Sacramento, Tahoe, Indio, Vegas, Houston, New York, DC, something like that.
When is Tahoe?
Next Tuesday. Let's talk.
Yeah, maybe Sacramento. It's tricky with the baby now, but she hasn't had her headphone experience yet, so we got to get on that. All right, brother, love you. Thank you, everyone that's here. Thank you so much. Thanks for supporting the work. Thanks for supporting the music. Let's stay in the center, because the art of the chart starts in the heart, and it's quite a musical thing. See you in space, everybody.
Bye, Brett.